It's Spencer Hughes with Hughes from the Heart and a very special segment here I've been doing called Everyday People. It's available for free. You could share it with everybody you know because I think what we discuss may be of interest not only to you but your family and friends as well, because we're all experiencing kind of this whole pandemic at the same time globally. No matter where you are on Earth, it's affecting you somehow. And I thought we would do a segment where I would talk to my other everyday friends out there and get kind of a heartbeat of what's going on and see how it's affecting you and the people in your household. We have Jason Layland on the Skype line with us here for the interview. He is a longtime friend on social media and a listener out there in Radio Land, and actually from my old stomping grounds before we moved here to Washington State, the Roseville area of California, which is Placer County. I know that area well, and I don't miss California, Jason, but I do miss, obviously, the family and friends I have there, and a few sushi places, too. And I don't miss the 115 degrees in the summer, that's for sure.
Well, we're not that right now. We just had some pretty wicked thunderstorms last night come through here.
Oh, did you really? Yeah. Well, Jason, tell us a little bit about yourself, then we'll kind of dive right into our little easy conversation here on what's going on.
Yeah, so I, like you said, I'm from Roseville out here, outside of Sacramento area. I actually worked in EMS as an EMT for a long time before retiring about 15 years ago and started in the finance industry. So I currently work in the finance industry, so I'm considered, quote, essential. So we're still working, although, not as much as we would like to, but we're still working, which is good. My wife works for the city, so she's covered as of right now. So, I consider us to be pretty blessed as far as that goes, that we're not facing any layoffs or anything along those lines at the moment.
Now, I remember when Governor Newsom passed the shelter in place, I thought, oh my gosh, this is a huge state, millions and millions and millions of people. How is this going to affect everybody? Washington State did it shortly after. It seems that I promise I'll leave politics out of this, but our governor closely models what Washington State does after what California does, for better, for worse. And we shut down too. But man, I thought, California, how is this going to work in the Bay Area, which Placer County is not part of the Bay Area. I want people who don't know California and understand that you're not in the Bay Area. But the Bay Area had even stricter shelter in place. You can't go to a funeral in the Bay Area, from what I understand, with more than 10 people at the funeral. That's how strict they're getting. No more golfing, no more a lot of outdoors activities either. So how? Well, you guys have some of the more congested. I remember in the last couple of years last 5 or 10 years we were living in the Sacramento area, that traffic at the wrong time of day could be just as bad as, honestly, the Bay Area or even Los Angeles. How are things on the highways right now, and how much getting around are you doing, or are you pretty much at home?
Actually, believe it or not, there's quite a few people on the road when we've gone out. Not anywhere near what normally would be, but there's quite a few people. We've been trying to stay at home other than the essential work, and then we've gone to the grocery store a couple times, and there's still people out. It's not out here, at least. It's not as strict as you said as the Bay Area. We haven't experienced any kind of cops pulling you over, asking you what you're doing out there, or anything along those lines here. And I know in the last week it has gotten a little bit better here, as far as more people, I think, are finally adhering to this, because like I noticed at the local dog park, there aren't any more people, where last week there was like a normal day.
Yeah, I'm amazed at how many people are still kind of acting like business as usual in terms of relating to each other. And I think maybe it's just force of habit. We tend to be social creatures, most of us, and it's hard to, I find myself catching myself with people I run into that I know, not even doing a fist bump. You're 6 feet away, even from friends and family. Yeah. Unless it's people like in your immediate home, even if a family member comes to the door to bring you food or something, you're still kind of like, okay, we've kind of been shut in here at home. We know who's here. We know we're not sick. I don't know where you've been, and I don't know if you're asymptomatic or whatever. So it's very strange how we go from kind of hugging each other everywhere we go and fist bumps and handshaking to really not even getting close enough to do any of that stuff.
It's funny because I belong to a group of men. We meet about every other week, and just to kind of hang out in the morning and spread positive notes among each other and stuff. And one of the things we were talking about, we did it over Skype recently, was how what's changed, I think, is the family dynamic. Because even in my family, I have a freshman and a junior, and they were super busy with sports and with school and after school activities, and then with us at work, that we would come home and say, oh, hi, kids, and then that would be it, because we're just so busy, even though we are in the same house. Well, now with them being home, we're having dinner together. We're seeing a lot more of our kids, and I think it's changing our relationship, where we're suddenly not that busy, where we can take time. And I think we're seeing that a lot from a lot of families. We're hearing the same things from friends that, wow, all of a sudden, here's our family together where we didn't have that. And I think that's a very positive thing. I think that can be very helpful to our society if our families were to get back together and really understand that that's important.
Oh, you nailed it. You really did. Because before this, I had here's the thing, Jason, I had just changed jobs after a couple of years at another place, not the radio show, but after a lot of people think I'm at the radio station full time. I'm there from 4:30 in the morning till about 10 in the morning. Then I rush off to my 9-hour a day job that, pays the bulk of the bills and the benefits and everything. And I had that one for almost 2 years. Switched jobs for better opportunity, and then 3 days later got laid off. Now they're promising that, I'll come back along with the other salespeople, but car sales, I guess, is not considered essential. The mechanics are, thank God, and they can still fix and work on your car, but they can't sell you a car, I guess, which seems kind of weird because if your car doesn't work, you need to buy a car somewhere. But I guess you're stuck with Craigslist for now. But I was gone 18, 19 hours a day, including my commute time from home. I was never here for my family. I was never here with them. And I am now, You're absolutely right. I'm realizing now what that time is worth to me. And I am honestly excited about the podcast and growing it, and hopes that in the future, maybe a few years down the line, it might take that long, I can work from home. Maybe this will be something this is what it feels like to me. This is what I thought it would feel like to work from home, to be, 10 feet away from the other room, the kitchen and the living room and the family room, and just be in the family and be here to cook meals and to be here for the family and to be here when questions are being asked or the garbage needs to be taken out, and just silly everyday things that I was just never, ever here to do.
Right. I'm in the same boat because I did a little bit of traveling when I was, before all this happened. And at first, when I said, "Oh, I'm not going to travel," my wife jokingly said, "Oh boy." but after a while, we've gotten a pretty good system now where, man, it really is like I'm enjoying spending time with my kids. And it makes me think, my junior's example, she's going to be gone after another year and month, basically. I mean, off to college or whenever, and it's like, oh my gosh, I don't want to miss those times now. I kind of am like, I'd rather have it kind of stay this way. Not the rest of it, but at least that part of it,
Yeah, no, it's true. And it's a weird feeling to it. That's the good part of it. There's a lot of good. There's a lot of weird feeling in it in terms of just the sheer time under the same roof and not having the same routines. And I feel, the kids described it best because they still have their lessons and stuff. School, contrary to what a lot of kids think, school's still kind of going on. It's just not happening in the brick and mortar buildings anymore and stuff. But I have never, it struck me actually just last night when I was going to bed. The most I've ever taken off on vacation is like 2 weeks. And maybe like 1 week at a time, right? And I think the last time I took that much time off was when Sarah and I had our honeymoon on an Alaskan cruise. We had a 1-week cruise to Alaska, and I think that's the last time I've taken 7 consecutive days off of work. Now, I still do the radio show. I do it from home, and I do it in my PJs, and I feel like it's kind of like almost not working because I enjoy it so much. So it's like I do the radio show. I'm done by 10 in the morning, 9:30, 10 o'clock in the morning, then I'm done. And it feels like this kind of perpetual vacation. It's good and bad. It's weird because I think most Americans certainly are not used to having a month to a month and a half or 2 months of just kind of not going very many places.
Yeah, and we actually were supposed to go for spring break because this is spring break now, and we were supposed to go back east on a little trip, and of course we didn't get to. And my kids took that with pride, with a grain of salt, because obviously they were excited about it, as were we. And as the time started getting closer, it was like, oh, we're not going to get to go. And they understood. So there's a lot of angst in our family occasionally. We've had days where each of us have had stresses, where you go through, oh, why are we doing this? And, and it's funny, actually, one of the things that gets to me is all of this crazy panic buying. Like, we go to the grocery store and my wife says, I got to stop going to the store with you because I get frustrated. Like, I walk down the ice cream aisle and it's empty and I go, really? What? Who is buying ice cream at like this kind of panic buying. I'm like, it doesn't make any sense. And my wife goes, I'm just not going to take you anymore.
Well, the toilet paper is what puzzles me. I still can't regularly find toilet paper. Toilet paper around here, I don't know how it is in Northern California, but it's hard to come by here.
Oh, it's that and sanitizing stuff, like hand sanitizers, are the two hardest. What I have noticed in the last about 2 weeks, and it's funny how you get excited about the littlest things now. Milk is back, and eggs are back, and meat is back. There was a time when you would walk through the milk aisle and it'd be empty, just like the toilet paper aisle. And you're like,
oh wow!
Okay, really?
Luckily, we haven't seen that here. Luckily we haven't run out of those.
But toilet paper, it's the exact same thing. Like it shows up and they're gone. They don't even put it on the shelf. They just stick the pallet in the middle of the floor, and people tear apart like vultures.
Yeah, I was getting upset when stores. I was refusing to go to stores that would not put limits on people. And in the beginning, I think most were afraid to put limits on people because they didn't want to like ration, like it's World War II or something. But they realized they had to start doing it because people, Safeway here, we have Safeway just like you have there, a local one, it would come on the pallet and it would be gone. Like somebody would buy like, 100 rolls or something.
Yeah, isn't that crazy? The toilet paper is the one that I can't understand either because I think, how long do you plan on being quarantined?
I know, that's the thing. I mean, I have 4 kids still at home, and we don't go through that much toilet paper in months and months. I don't know what they're thinking is going to happen.
Right. And of course we, believe it or not, they just said on Sunday or Saturday, maybe everybody should wear masks. Well, back here we had those big fires back 2 years ago, up in Paradise. And of course the smoke comes down here and it was really bad. And everybody bought all these N95 masks. Well, we were cleaning out our garage and what did we find? Our stash from 2 years ago. And I thought, man, that's a gold mine.
Wow. I know. I just bought them off of eBay from you. No, I'm just kidding.
What are you talking about? I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, those, you know what I was just reading too? This is interesting because I've been wearing gloves, vinyl, whatever you call them, the latex gloves or whatever, the store. And I'm actually going to podcast on this later because it's interesting. I just read an article on preventionmagazine.com. You shouldn't be wearing gloves to the grocery store because I wondered that. I felt somehow dirtier by wearing gloves. Like I felt like everything I touched, I was more conscious of that I was contaminating and cross-touching things. And they're saying that it's good for doctors and nurses and stuff. It makes sense when you're just touching the patient's face and instruments and stuff. But you could actually transmit and spread more viruses by wearing gloves in a grocery store than by not wearing them. Because you can't contract this just by, a lot of people I think are getting so paranoid, they think by touching a surface with their hand, they get the virus. They still have to touch their eyeball, their nose, their mouth, enter somehow. It's not going to just,
Correct.
You're not going to get sick just by even shaking hands with somebody that has it. It's not the shaking hands that gets you sick. It's touching your face right afterwards.
Well, and I think that's how most first responders are able to, stay away from this because, they're out there picking up, who knows? They got to go to someone's house when they call 911. You don't know what that person doesn't have. And, there are some that have gotten it, of course, but it's not as, even with doctors and nurses, it's not as rampant as you would maybe think. And I think that's because even though you touch the patient, like you said, you have to get it in through some sort of passage, through your nasal passage, mouth, eyes, whatever. And if you're careful about that, then it's never a zero chance, but you really lower your risk substantially. And I think that's what most people should understand is there's always risk, but it's minimized as best you can by just washing your hands and by just, not touching your eyeballs or your mouth and just being careful, and it's hard to do. I mean, I think back to how many people are germaphobes that we made fun of for years and years and years of society, and now we're all
I hope these steps and these precautions stay with us. I hope it's not like 9/11 where we remember things and then a year later they vanished from our memory banks. I hope this is something that, I hope people always use hand sanitizer. I hope people always wash their hands thoroughly. I hope everybody is clean and just conscious of how many times they touch their face. I think after weeks and weeks and months of this, I think it will be ingrained in us, don't you think? I think most of us are going to carry this into the next,
I think so too. I mean, if you had somebody who was affected by it, then you absolutely will the rest of your life. But I think a lot of people will anyways, just because it's not that much harder to do. It's hard to be, real diligent about it like 24/7, but it's not hard to do most of the time.
It's not, no. One thing that I find kind of frustrating a little bit is I understand the message, stay home, save lives. Everybody's got it on their Facebook profile pictures and stay home, keep someone alive. I get a little frustrated when I have friends that keep telling me that have the ability to work from home. I can do the radio show from home. I can't sell cars from home. I have to get back on the car lot at some point and start selling vehicles to make a living. And a lot of us don't have the luxury of being able to stay home indefinitely. I don't want to say a pushback from me, but I am feeling a little resentment when everyone makes it sound so easy, like just stay home, just, however long it takes. And I'm like, well, what do you mean however long it takes? What if it takes 9 years? What if it takes 8 months? We can't, at some point we have to get back to work. Most of us cannot function fully in our capacity of work from home. We have to go to a brick and mortar building. We have to get in our cars. We have to commute. We have to go somewhere. We have to flip physical levers and switches, and we have to sell commodities that we can't sell from our house. I can't do a test drive with a customer from my house in the forest here. I have to be at the car lot. So I just get frustrated sometimes because I think there's a lot of people that are thinking this is an endless Netflix vacation. And I think a lot of people, either already work from home, which is more power to them. I've been trying to do that for the last 20 years. So I'm hoping one day to be able to work from home. So I applaud them. They either work from home already, they're retired and they're home anyway whenever they want to be, or C, they have some sort of a nest egg where they can stay at home sheltered for the next 5 years and not feel it. But there's a lot of us out there in the real world that are worried that this is going to keep going on indefinitely. And then what are we going to do? What are your thoughts, Jason? Are we going to shut down the world every 8 months that there's a virus? I mean, what are we going to do when this becomes more common? Are we just never have jobs? We're never going to leave our houses? We're just going to be hermits in our own property? I mean, what are we going to do?
Well, and that's a great question because I've had this discussion with friends and even my family that, this is the first time, but I think like everything else in government, it's always the first time that leads to more times because you've seen on Facebook all the different things like the pandemic of the H1N1 and the swine flu and the bird flu and the this flu and the that and people and we didn't do any of this. And now all of a sudden we've done this and it almost seems to me, I'm in the boat that I'm not downplaying that we shouldn't do something at all, but I also feel like this now opened up the door for it to happen again. And that is scary because what happens? I mean, the government can't pay everybody not to work forever. There has to be monetary exchange somehow, somewhere, at some point. And, I don't necessarily believe like this is a big government conspiracy. I mean, I'll keep politics out of it as well, but I'll just say that it seems to be that this certainly helped certain groups, I would think, politically, unfortunately. And, as with anything, there's going to be some good and some bad of everything. And I personally, just as a note, I don't like the infighting among the politicians, Republican or Democrat. I don't care what side you're on. I don't think it's the time for them to be fighting about anything. I think it's the time for them to come together and say, solve this. Fight about it later.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And so that's my take on that. But regardless of that, I totally agree with you that we can't. This economy has to open back up in order for us to succeed and function because the longer it goes, the more detrimental harm it's doing. And, I understand that if you say that and then you go out and work and get your, I have a 90-year-old grandmother. I wouldn't want to get her sick. Heck no, not in a million years. I haven't seen her since all this started. She lives up in about 100 miles north of here, and I saw her once a week, and I haven't seen her in 2 months because I don't want to get near her because I don't know if I have it, and I don't want to be the one to give it to her.
And that's the thing, too, this thing. The thing with this, Jason, is that at some point, someone's going to have to make the decision, and I wouldn't want to be that person, by the way, but someone's going to have to make the decision that they look out the tent. There's no Sasquatch, there's no bear, there's no cougars, and you have to say, okay, the coast is clear. It's time to go out and take a pee, and we're not going to get eaten by a monster. At some point, we have to be able to say that, and it's not always going to be 100% certain. The bear might come and maul you while you're taking a pee, and that happens. But the way I see it is if we wait till we're 100% certain of 100% safety, we'll never, ever get there. Someone is going to get this again. Even if the death rate's down to 0.5% or whatever it is, it's impossible to guarantee this isn't out there. It's not something that won't reoccur. It's not a variation of something that'll happen, if not this coronavirus and another coronavirus. It could be a COVID-22 or a COVID-21 or whatever it is. But at some point, we have to weigh the death rate, the sickness rate, and what it's doing to the world. I mean, I know that sounds kind of selfish on my part, but it's true, isn't it? I mean, it's not something to take lightly that we shut the whole world down.
Right. No, I mean, It's funny you say that because I think that you're right. There is a point in time where if we're afraid to get hit by a drunk driver and we never drive again, what good is that going to do? Of course, if you're driving on the road, there are drunk drivers out there, and one of them may hit you and injure you or kill you, but you have to kind of take that risk when you're out driving, because otherwise you would never drive. And if you didn't drive, you wouldn't be, functional,
Yeah.
so-called. I mean, I guess if you live in New York, you don't have to drive, but everywhere else,
Yeah.
But so you have to determine that's a calculated risk that unfortunately you have to take in this world, just like flying.
Yeah.
Planes crash, very few, of course, but if you happen to be on the one that does, well, that's going to not be good. But that's a calculated risk you have to take if you want to go on vacation or you want to go travel or whatever. And so we have to get back to that with this, to say, okay, there's a calculated risk. And again, if you do the things you're supposed to do, like wash your hands more, and so forth and so on, that risk is minimized to the point where you don't have to necessarily feel like it's
Right.
almost not there, and then you can go out and do the things that you're supposed to do.
By the way, if you're hearing this, if you're hearing this endless guzzling of water, it's not me. It's my dog Perry. He's in the background. He decided to get thirsty in the middle of the interview, and he is guzzling about 18 gallons of water in the background. But that's some of the pitfalls of working from home, right? So I apologize if you're hearing that. That's not me. Okay.
No worries. In fact, I didn't hear it, but that's funny.
Yeah, he's in the background being very distracted right now. Perry, God, all of a sudden he's been in here with me since 4 a.m. It's 11 o'clock now, and he's just now getting thirsty, and he's drinking like a week's worth of water. But
that's even like kids, they'll do that too. They'll be completely self-contained all day until you have to do something, and that's when they say, "Dad, hey, Dad," and you're like, "Really now?"
Well, what's funny is I heard a story. Someone just told me that somebody they knew or they saw online, what a father did was put on a goofy hat. He found like a goofy hat in the garage with like little propellers on it and streamers and everything. And when he's wearing that hat, the kids know that means I am not on dad duty right now. I am working. I am doing my business from home or whatever they're doing. And that means do not talk to me right now when I'm wearing this hat. And I thought that was pretty good.
That's funny. Yeah, we all of us in my family and all of my friends that I know, we all kind of have our days where you do fine and everything is good, and then the next day, I think the weekends sort of get to you, because it's like then you realize, man, the weather is turning. We should be out playing softball. My girls should be cheerleading, doing all these things that they should be doing, and then it just hits you that they're not. And you go, oh my gosh. And then when it hits you, you kind of get maybe a little bit sad or angry, and then you go, well, there's nothing you can do about it. And then you go back to, well, it's okay. And then, you go through the gamut of emotions where it's like, oh man, I mean, personally, I just think to myself, I just wanted to get back.
Oh yeah. I am going to be so appreciative, honestly. And I hope everyone, and I hope, honestly, I stick to this, Jason. I say it now. I hope I will do it. I'll hold myself to it. I'll have my family hold me to it. That first restaurant outing with the family is going to be so spectacularly fun because we haven't done it in so long. We took it for granted, right? Even just the restaurants in our home area here, we can't go to anymore. And that first sushi at the sushi bar, and the first ball game for those who like sports, and the first Broadway play people go back to. It's going to be so incredible, and we're going to realize, wow, we used to go to ball games every weekend and not think twice about it. We just kind of did it almost by default, a routine, and now it's like really, really fun and spectacular and special.
Right. And of course, you remember 9/11 as I do. I was 25, and it's kind of like when I went outside after 9/11 and looked up and realized there's not 10,000 chemtrails going over us as a major part of the country where people fly over, and you don't see any of the planes, hearing the planes. And then, a week later, you heard that first plane and went, glorious sound of a plane flying overhead.
Yeah. Just the little things we all take for granted. I mean, even people who go to, I'm not a churchgoer myself anymore, but people who go to church, people who go fishing with friends on a boat, and just bowling and contact sports and non-contact sports, and just having a drink after work on the way home at a bar. The fact, even if you don't drink, the fact that you drive by and you see that the bar is open, I mean, even that gives you some sense of security and hope.
Yeah, and I don't know. I look at this from my industry. I think about all the different businesses that may not reopen because of this, and that makes me sad because the big stores, McDonald's, any stores, they'll all survive. Yes, they'll whine and complain that they're not making money, but they'll survive. But what about these little tiny businesses that only have one store? I mean, this is killing them. this is going to be very difficult for them to come back from.
It really is. That's the sad thing too, is the mom and pops that might not survive it.
It is very much sad, and I feel like that's a that's a sad thing that we're going to have to deal with. But I think we're going to fundamentally change the way our economy and our society is too, because I think personally, we're going to turn back into a manufacturing society as we realize that so much of this stuff was manufactured overseas. And you think, why are we letting countries overseas that may not like us manufacture our critical pills, our critical stuff? And I think that when this is all over, we'll come back to making a lot of that stuff in the USA again. And so there will be more jobs and more, remember back in the 80s when Made in USA was such a big label?
Oh, yeah.
You bought that only because it was made in the USA. I think we'll get back to that a little bit.
I think so.
And, I think that's going to be good. There's no way to say it other than it's going to suck for the next probably 6 months to a year. But I think we'll get through it as a country, as a society, and as a planet, as a whole.
Yeah, I think surviving this together as a global people, citizens of the earth, instead of just looking at borders and stuff. I think it is going to bring us together, and I hope we don't ever forget. I mean, this reminds me kind of like those asteroid movies, where people think the world's going to end in a week or something, and then like you get the second chance, like the asteroid just brushes by and it doesn't obliterate the planet, and you're like, wow, okay, so let's maybe be nice to each other for once, because we never know when this might happen.
Yeah.
Let's be civilized to each other.
Right. No, I think that's a great analogy, because we will get through it. I mean, whether or not you have faith in our government, things will work themselves out one way or another. It's just going to be a matter of when, and that's the tough part. So we don't know. But once it's all done, I would love to see us. I would love to see us go back to being friendly to each other and helping each other out. And I have stories of friends that have helped their neighbors grocery shop and learned about their neighbors that they hadn't known their neighbors for 10 years. And now all of a sudden they know them because they went and grocery shopped for them because they couldn't get out.
Yeah. No, it's great. And I think it will bring us together. Jason, thanks a lot for your time. I really appreciate you spending this half hour with me talking about how it has affected you and your family and your work and everything. And great touching base with you, man.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you doing what you do. I'm always reading your Facebook posts and listening. And I know it's tough to be positive all the time, but man, you're doing a good job of it. So keep up the good work.
I appreciate it so much, Jason. My best to you and your family, okay, in beautiful Roseville, California, my old stomping grounds, and maybe we'll see each other again one of these days.
You too, and if you ever get back here, you know where to find me, and we'll grab that beer.
Hey, you bet, absolutely. Thanks, my friend.
All right.
Jason Layland, my guest for Everyday People Episode 6. If you'd like to be on a future episode of Everyday People, just drop me a message through social media, and we'll get you on the podcast, Hughes from the Heart, in that free segment called Everyday People, where everyone's invited to chat with me. And it's a free episode, so you can always share it with your friends and family and show them what a rock star you are. Thanks a lot for listening. And if you would like to support my podcast, I hope you will choose to do that. I give you free content like this all the time, almost half an hour here of totally free content, no strings attached. But all I do ask is that if you like what you hear and you want to support positivity and good news stories and good vibrations and good energy out there, and stories that the mainstream media is leaving behind for whatever reason, then please sign up for my podcast, Hughes from the Heart. The free version is all over the place: iTunes, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Spreaker, Patreon. The paid version is at patreon.com/Spencer Hughes. patreon.com/Spencer Hughes. I hope you'll sign up today and tell all your friends and family about it. Thanks a lot for listening. This is Everyday People, a segment of Hughes from the Heart.